we have two extremes, places where human rights are scarcely respected, and at the other end where the prisoners are mollycoddled and treated as though they really had no responsibility for their crime at all. And I think because our lawmakers cannot make up their mind, they're affected, they're pulled by their constituents in these two directions, towards these two extremes of the spectrum, there's a lack of good and consistent policies. There are exceptions. I've met people who work within the prison systems who seem to really have their heads on straight. But overall, I think the system's going pretty badly. And certainly in my country, the United States, where a huge number of men are imprisoned right now, is this really reforming their characters? I don't think so. The recidivism rate is sky high. The overwhelming majority who are imprisoned end up going right back to prison. In fact, I think I read this week that the United States, although it only has 5% of the world's population, has 25% of all the world's prisoners. Something is going horribly wrong. In contrast, China, which doesn't exactly have a stellar human rights record, has a much smaller percentage. I think maybe fewer than 1/4 of the U.S. level, just a little bit over 1% incarcerated. So, my thoughts on incarceration, well, ancient incarceration wasn't what it was today. If you weren't taken care of by your family, you probably weren't going to be taken care of very well at all. In contrast, our modern system, I think because of confusion over different philosophies of reformation of character, has come up with some very strange policies. And we have the very soft end and the very hard end of the spectrum, and there's really not a whole lot of consistency worldwide. I don't think the prison system works very well. Well, it would be not right to end without saying a couple positive things here about the gospel. Even though in New Testament times, the prisoners that were visited would normally have been believers, for example, Hebrews 13 talks about remembering to visit those in prison. These are fellow Christians who've been arrested. Because of the principle of love, of grace, of mercy, of evangelism, certainly other prisoners were saved, other people within the system. I think of in Philippians 1, where Paul talks about his incarceration. He writes Philippians from prison. It's just a one-liner at the very end of Philippians 4, but it's very encouraging, where he mentions those from Caesar's household send greetings. In other words, Paul is under imperial arrest. A number of people within that system have heard the gospel, and they have become Christians. And so prison ministry, I would never say that should only be to Christians or to people who are unfairly arrested. That would require even more of the wisdom of Solomon. How do you determine that? No, prison ministry can be a great evangelistic opportunity. I think that's the implication of Philippians 1 and Philippians 4, and just of the gospel itself. Now, we'll continue